Have you ever felt judged in a place you thought was safe? I did. And what happened will leave you speechless. They say shame can kill you slowly, but what they don't mention is that it can also lead to the creation of something powerful and unstoppable. I'll never forget the Sunday I died inside the Believers' Church of Grace. The day Sister Beatrice, the pastor's wife, stood before 300 people, pointed her perfectly manicured finger at me, and declared that my body was a weapon of the devil. The congregation gasped. Some nodded in agreement. Others whispered prayers, as if my very presence had summoned demons into the sanctuary. I stood there frozen, my heart pounding so loud I thought it would burst through my chest. The walls of that church in Lagos felt like they were closing in, suffocating me with judgment. I wanted to scream, to run, to disappear into the cracked tiles beneath my feet, but I couldn't move. All I could do was stand there while she stripped away every grain of dignity I had left. That moment should have destroyed me, and for a while it did. But what Sister Beatrice didn't know, what none of them knew, was that humiliation has a way of turning into fire, and I was about to burn brighter than any of them could imagine. How did a girl shamed in God's house become the woman they couldn't stop talking about? Let me take you back to where it all began. If you are joining us for the first time, please subscribe to enjoy more amazing stories with us. My name is Anita Bassi, and before everything changed, I was just another girl trying to find her place in the chaotic city of Lagos. I lived with my mother in a modest two-bedroom flat in Lagos, where the sounds of generators humming and street hawkers shouting blended into the soundtrack of our lives. My mother sold provisions at the main market, including rice, beans, and palm oil, as well as anything that could put food on our table. She left before dawn and returned after dusk, her wrapper always smelling of dried fish and determination. I worked as a receptionist at a small printing press in Lagos, where I answered calls, filed documents, and dodged the uncomfortable stares of men who thought my curves were an invitation. The pay wasn't much, but it paid enough to help my mother with rent and save a little for myself. God knew I needed saving in more ways than money. That's why I joined the Believers' Church of Grace 6 months before everything fell apart. The church sat on a busy street in Lagos, its white walls gleaming under the Lagos sun, its blue and gold signboard promising deliverance, breakthrough, and new beginnings. I wanted all three. I wanted to sing in the choir again, like I used to as a teenager. I wanted to feel the peace that comes from praise and worship, the kind that makes you forget about unpaid bills and judgmental neighbors. I wanted to belong somewhere that felt safe. But from the very first Sunday I walked through those glass doors, I felt the eyes. The women's eyes, sharp and assessing, were traveling from my face down to my hips, then back up again with thinly veiled disapproval. The men's eyes lingered too long, then quickly dashed away when their wives noticed. I wore simple clothes, nothing tight, nothing flashy. A knee-length dress, but it didn't matter. My body had always drawn attention I never asked for, and no amount of fabric could hide what God had given me. Still, I smiled. I greeted everyone warmly. I joined the women's fellowship and volunteered to help with church programs. I thought if I served hard enough, prayed loud enough, they would see my heart instead of my shape. I was wrong. Because in Lagos, in that church, in that world, a woman's body could be her greatest sin, even when she'd done nothing wrong. And the storm was already gathering. It started with whispers, the kind that slides through church pews like snakes in the grass. Some weeks after I joined the Believers' Church of Grace, I noticed the women's fellowship group had stopped inviting me to their midweek meetings. When I asked Sister Ngozi, one of the ushers, why I hadn't received the broadcast message, she smiled tightly and said, "Oh, we thought you were busy. You know, with work and all." But I saw the group chat. I saw their pictures at Sister Nkechi's house, eating jollof rice and small chops, laughing and praying together. Without me. Then came the Sunday I wore a fitted dress below the knee. Nothing indecent. I had bought it specifically for church, thinking it looked elegant and respectful. But the moment I stepped into the sanctuary, I felt the shift. Sister Beatrice, the pastor's wife, stood near the altar arranging flowers. When she saw me, her smile froze. Her eyes traveled slowly down my body, then back up to my face. She didn't say a word, but her expression said everything. After the service, she called me aside. "Anita, my dear," she began, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Can we talk for a moment?" My stomach tightened, but I nodded. Yes, Ma. She led me to a corner near the children's Sunday school room, away from the crowd. Her perfume was strong, expensive, suffocating. She adjusted her headgear and looked at me with the kind of pity that feels like an insult. You're a beautiful girl, she said slowly, but you need to be careful how you present yourself in the house of God. Some of the men have noticed you, and it's causing distractions. I blinked, confused. Ma, I don't understand. I'm just... Your body, she interrupted, her tone sharper now. It draws attention. You need to wear loose clothes. Something that doesn't emphasize your shape. This is a holy place, not a nightclub. Her words hit me like a slap. I opened my mouth to respond, but nothing came out. My throat felt tight, my chest was heavy. I wanted to defend myself, to tell her I wasn't trying to seduce anyone, that I was just existing in the body God gave me. But she didn't wait for my response. I'm saying this for your own good, she added, patting my shoulder like I was a child. Think about it. Then she walked away, leaving me standing there, trembling with humiliation. That night, I cried myself to sleep, but I had no idea that was only the beginning. The real storm was still coming. After that conversation with Sister Beatrice, I tried to make myself invisible. I started wearing oversized blouses that swallowed my frame. I wrapped large scarves around my waist, hoping to hide the curves that had become my curse. I arrived late to service and left early, avoiding eye contact, avoiding conversations, avoiding everything. But invisibility, I learned, is impossible when people have already decided who you are. The whispers grew louder. Have you seen the way she walks? It's intentional. That girl is a Jezebel spirit. Mark my words. She's here to scatter marriages. I've seen her type before. I heard them in the restroom, in the parking lot. Even during the offering period, when I passed by certain rows, the women would pull their husbands closer, as if I carried some contagious sin. One Sunday, Sister Beatrice introduced a new topic during the women's fellowship announcement: Christian women dressing with modesty and virtue. She didn't mention my name, but everyone knew. The women nodded vigorously. A few glanced at me with smug satisfaction. I felt a strong urge to leave. I wanted to step out of the church and never come back. But my mother wouldn't let me. Anita, don't let them chase you from God's house, she said one evening as we sat in our small sitting room, the ceiling fan creaking above us. You've done nothing wrong. Hold your head high. So I stayed. I endured. But then something unexpected happened. His name was Brother Chidi. He was the assistant choir director, tall, soft-spoken, with kind eyes that didn't linger where they shouldn't. He had noticed my discomfort, and one Wednesday evening after choir practice, he approached me. Sister Anita, he said gently, I just want you to know that not everyone here thinks badly of you. Some of us see your heart. His words were like water in a desert. For the first time in weeks, I felt seen. Not as a body, but as a person. We started talking after services. Nothing romantic, just friendly conversations about music, about life, about faith. He made me laugh. He made me feel normal again. But in the Believer's Church of Grace, even innocence could be twisted into scandal. It didn't take long for the rumors to start. Did you see Anita and Brother Chidi talking again? Something is going on. She's trying to trap him. That's what women like her do. Poor Brother Chidi. He doesn't know what he's getting into. I didn't know it yet, but Sister Beatrice had been watching, and she was about to make her move. One Sunday, during the peak of praise and worship, as the drums thundered and voices soared, I was lost in the music, my hands raised, my eyes closed, finally feeling a moment of peace. Then, suddenly, the music stopped. The entire church went silent. I opened my eyes, confused. The drummer's hands hovered over his drums. The keyboardist stared at the altar. Every head in the congregation had turned toward the pulpit. Sister Beatrice stood there, microphone in hand, her face set like stone, and her eyes were locked on me. Anita, she said, her voice cutting through the silence like a blade. Stand up. My heart stopped. I don't know how I managed to stand. My legs felt like water, my hands trembling at my sides. The entire congregation, hundreds of eyes, turned to stare at me. The air in the church felt thick, suffocating, like the walls themselves were pressing in. Sister Beatrice stood at the pulpit, her purple dress gleaming under the fluorescent lights, her expression a mixture of righteous anger and cold satisfaction. Brethren, she began, her voice echoing through the microphone, we gather here every Sunday to worship the Most High God. But how can we worship in purity when there are wolves among the sheep? Murmurs rippled through the crowd. My chest tightened. Some people, she continued, her gaze never leaving mine, come to the house of God not to seek his face, but to parade themselves, to use their bodies as tools of distraction and seduction. My breath caught. I wanted to speak, to defend myself, but my voice was trapped somewhere deep in my throat. This young woman, she said, pointing directly at me now, has been warned. Privately. Gently. But instead of repenting, she continues to dress in ways that draw the eyes of men towards her. She lingers around our brothers, whispering, laughing, causing division. That's not true, I finally managed to whisper, but my voice was too small, swallowed by the vastness of the room. Speak up, Sister Beatrice snapped. If you have something to say it boldly. Or does your conscience convict you? Tears burned my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Not here, not in front of them. Brother Chidi stood up from the choir section, his face pale. Ma, with all due respect, Sister Anita has done nothing wrong. We were just... Sit down, Brother Chidi, she barked, her voice sharp as a whip. Don't let her deceive you. This is how it starts. Innocent conversations, friendly smiles, and before you know it, a man of God is entangled in sin. The congregation erupted in murmurs. Some women nodded vigorously. A few men shifted uncomfortably in their seats. I saw pity in some eyes, judgment in others, and in a few, cruel satisfaction. Sister Beatrice turned back to me, her voice dropping to a tone that was almost gentle, but laced with venom. Anita, I'm giving you a choice. You can repent here before this congregation and commit to dressing modestly and staying away from our brothers, or you can leave this church and take your spirit of seduction elsewhere. The room spun, my vision blurred. I felt like I was drowning in shame, gasping for air that wouldn't come. My mother always told me that God tests us in fire to refine us, not to destroy us. But standing there in that moment, I felt nothing but destruction. I took a final glance around the room, looking at the familiar faces that used to greet me with warm smiles. I remembered the women who had sung alongside me. My eyes settled on Brother Chidi, who appeared heartbroken and unable to change the situation. Then I looked back at Sister Beatrice. And something inside me, something I didn't even know existed, began to harden. I didn't repent, I didn't apologize. I simply turned and walked out. The heavy church doors slammed behind me, and the Lagos heat hit my face like a furnace. My chest heaved with sobs I could no longer hold back. I stumbled toward the roadside, my vision blurred with tears, my heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. But as I stood there, gasping for breath under the unforgiving sun, a strange thought entered my mind. One day, they will remember this moment, and they will regret it. I didn't know how, I didn't know when, but I swore it to myself, to God, to the universe. I would rise above this shame. For days, I didn't leave my room, I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Sister Beatrice's face, heard her voice echoing in my head, "Take your spirit of seduction elsewhere." My phone buzzed constantly. Messages from church members flooded in, some pretending to care, others sending Bible verses about modesty and repentance, as if I were the one who needed to be saved. One message from Sister Ngozi read, "Anita, pride comes before a fall. You should have just apologized. Now see what you've caused." I threw my phone across the room. My mother knocked softly on my door every few hours, her voice gentle but worried. "Anita, my daughter, please eat something. You'll make yourself sick." But I couldn't. The shame had wrapped itself around my throat like a noose, choking me slowly. After some days, I finally dragged myself out of bed. I looked in the mirror and barely recognized the girl staring back at me. My eyes were swollen, my face hollow, my spirit broken. I whispered to my reflection, "What did I do wrong?" But the mirror had no answer. That afternoon, my mother came into my room and sat beside me. She didn't say anything at first. She just held my hand, her rough, calloused fingers wrapping around mine. "Anita," she finally said, her voice thick with emotion, "I know you're hurting, but don't let them kill your spirit. God doesn't make mistakes. The body he gave you is not a curse. It's a gift. And one day you'll understand why." I wanted to believe her. But belief felt impossible when the world had convinced me I was wrong just for existing. Then, late that night, as I lay staring at the ceiling, my phone buzzed again. I almost ignored it. But something made me reach for it. It was a message from an unknown number. "I saw what they did to you at the Believers' Church of Grace. I'm sorry, But you should know Sister Beatrice is telling everyone you tried to seduce her husband. She's making sure to tarnish your image. I thought you should know. Stay strong." My blood ran cold. I read the message again and again. She wasn't just trying to humiliate me. She was trying to destroy me. My hands trembled as I dropped the phone. Rage, grief, and helplessness collided inside me like a storm I couldn't control. I fell to my knees, tears streaming down my face, and for the first time in my life, I didn't pray for peace. I prayed for strength. Because if Sister Beatrice wanted war, she had no idea what she had just awakened. But first, I needed to escape the flames she had ignited, and I wasn't certain I would make it out alive. The fire that nearly destroyed me became the forge that shaped me. For 2 months, I disappeared. Not physically. I still lived in Lagos, still woke up every morning, but I vanished from the world that had rejected me. I stopped going to church. I stopped answering calls. I locked myself away with the one thing that had never judged me, my mother's old sewing machine. It sat in the corner of our flat, dusty and forgotten, a relic from my mother's younger days, when she used to sew clothes for neighbors to make extra money. I pulled it out, wiped it clean, and stared at it like it held the answer to a question I hadn't yet asked. Then I began to create. I sketched designs on scraps of paper, dresses that celebrated curves instead of hiding them, clothes that made women feel powerful, not ashamed. I used my savings from the printing press to buy fabric from the market. Cheap materials at first, but enough to practice. My fingers bled from needle pricks. My back ached from hunching over the machine late into the night, but with every stitch, I felt something inside me shift. The shame was transforming into something else. Something fierce. Something unstoppable. My mother watched me quietly, never asking questions, just bringing me tea and bread, whispering prayers over my head when she thought I was asleep. My first dress was for myself, a deep emerald pink-colored gown with a fitted bodice and flowing skirt. When I put it on and looked in the mirror, I saw someone I hadn't seen in months. A woman who was beautiful, not because she was trying to seduce anyone, but because she existed. I posted a photo of it on Instagram with a simple caption. They said my body was a distraction. I say it's a masterpiece. Within hours, the post went viral. Comments flooded in, women sharing their own stories of being shamed, of being told to shrink, to hide, to apologize for their bodies. They asked where they could buy the dress. They begged me to make more. I called my brand Rain by Anita because I was done being a victim. I was ready to rule my own life. Orders poured in. I worked day and night sewing dresses for women across Lagos. My neighbor Hannah wore one of my designs to a wedding in Victoria Island, and by the next week, 10 more women had contacted me. The business grew faster than I could have imagined. Within 3 months, I had hired 2 apprentices. Within 6 months, I had moved into a small shop. And then, one afternoon, as I was pinning fabric on a mannequin, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. "Hello, is this Anita Bassi?" a polished female voice asked. "Yes, speaking. This is Tola from Lagos Living TV. We've been following your story online and we'd love to feature you on our show. Your message about body confidence is inspiring thousands of women." I nearly dropped the phone. But before I could even process that, another message came through. This one made my heart stop. It was an invitation, printed on expensive cardstock, delivered by hand. The Believers Church of Grace Women's Conference, Reclaiming Your Worth. Guest speaker, Anita Bassi. I stared at the card, my hands trembling. They wanted me back. The same church that had destroyed me now wanted me to speak. And I had a choice to make. I didn't sleep the night before I returned to the Believers Church of Grace. I sat by the window of my flat, staring out at the Lagos skyline, the flickering lights, the distant hum of traffic, the city that never truly slept. My mind raced with 1,000 thoughts. Should I go? Should I forgive them? Should I use this moment to expose their hypocrisy or to extend grace? My mother sat beside me in the darkness, her presence a quiet comfort. "Whatever you decide," she said softly. "Make sure it's for you, not for them." When Sunday morning came, I dressed carefully. I wore one of my own designs, a flowing cream gown with gold embroidery along the neckline and sleeves. It was elegant, modest, and undeniably powerful. I wanted them to see what they had tried to destroy. I wanted them to see what I had become. The moment I stepped into the Believers Church of Grace, the atmosphere shifted. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Heads turned. Whispers erupted like wildfire. I walked down the aisle slowly, my heels clicking against the tile floor, my head held high. I felt every eye on me, but this time, I didn't shrink. I didn't hide. I owned every step. Sister Beatrice stood near the altar, arranging programs for the conference. When she saw me, her face went pale. For a brief moment, something flickered in her eyes. Shock, fear, maybe even regret. But she quickly composed herself, forcing a tight smile. "Sister Anita," she said, her voice strained. "Welcome. We're honored to have you." I nodded but said nothing. Not yet. The service began. I sat quietly in the front row, listening to the worship, the prayers, the announcements. Then came the moment they introduced me. "Our guest speaker today," the MC announced, "is a woman who has inspired thousands across Lagos with her message of confidence and self-worth. Please welcome Anita Bassi." The applause was hesitant at first, then grew louder. I stood and walked to the pulpit, my heart pounding, but my resolve was steady. I looked out at the congregation. The same faces that had judged me, whispered about me, and condemned me. And I took a deep breath. "A year ago," I began, my voice clear and strong. "I stood in this church and was told that my body was a sin, that I was a distraction, a threat, a Jezebel." The room went deathly silent. I left here broken, ashamed, convinced that I was a mistake. I paused, letting the weight of my words settle. But today, I stand before you as proof that shame does not have the final word. Tears glistened in the eyes of several women. Even some of the men shifted uncomfortably. I didn't come here looking for an apology. Instead, I want to share a message with all women who have ever felt like they were too emotional, too outspoken, or too noticeable. You're not the issue. You never were. And then I looked directly at Sister Beatrice. "Forgiveness," I said softly, "is not about forgetting. It's about freeing yourself from the prison of bitterness." Her eyes filled with tears. The audience burst into loud and heartfelt applause. I was back, not as someone who had been defeated, but as someone who had triumphed. After my speech, the church hall felt different, lighter somehow, as if a heavy cloud had finally lifted. Women lined up to speak with me, some with tears streaming down their faces, others clutching my hands like I had given them permission to breathe again. They shared their own stories, of being shamed for their bodies, their voices, their very existence. They thanked me for saying what they had been too afraid to say. One elderly woman, her head wrapped in a faded scarf, held my face gently and whispered, "My daughter, you have set many captives free today." But the moment that changed everything came when Sister Beatrice approached me. The crowd had thinned, and I was gathering my things when I felt her presence beside me. I turned to face her, and for the first time since I'd known her, she looked small, vulnerable, human. "Anita," she began, her voice barely above a whisper, "I owe you an apology." I said nothing, just waited. "I was wrong," she continued, tears now flowing freely down her cheeks. "I was so consumed with protecting the church, with maintaining order, that I forgot the most important thing. Compassion. I hurt you. Deeply. And I'm sorry." The apology hung in the air between us. Part of me wanted to reject it, to remind her of the nights I cried myself to sleep, of the rumors she spread, of the pain she caused. But another part of me, the part that had been refined by fire, understood something profound. "I forgive you," I said quietly. "Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace." She nodded, unable to speak, and walked away. In the months that followed, my life transformed in ways I never imagined. The Lagos Living TV feature aired, and suddenly, Rain by Anita wasn't just a local brand. It was a movement. Women from Abuja, Port Harcourt, even London and New York began ordering my designs. I opened a larger shop in the heart of Lagos, hired 15 seamstresses, and launched a ready-to-wear line that celebrated African women of all shapes and sizes. But success, I realized, meant nothing if I kept it to myself. That's when I founded the Rain Confidence Initiative, a program that taught young girls fashion design, business skills, and most importantly, self-worth. We held workshops in schools, churches, and community centers across Lagos, reaching girls who had been told they were too much or not enough. The launch event was held at a community hall in Lagos, not far from where I grew up. The room was packed with young girls, their eyes bright with hope and curiosity. My mother sat in the front row, her face glowing with pride. As I stood before them, I thought about the girl I used to be, the one who believed shame was her identity, who thought her body was a curse, who almost let other people's judgment destroy her. Your body is not your enemy, I told them. It's the vessel that carries your purpose. Don't let anyone convince you that you need to shrink to be worthy. You were born to take up space. The applause was deafening. And then something unexpected happened. Sister Beatrice walked in. She stood at the back of the hall, watching quietly. When our eyes met, she smiled, a genuine humble smile, and nodded. After the event, she approached me once more. I want to support your foundation, she said. Not for publicity, not to ease my guilt, but because what you're doing is God's work, the work I should have been doing all along. I accepted her offer, not because I needed her validation, but because redemption is a gift we all deserve. Looking back now, I understand that my story was never just about me. It was about every woman who has been shamed for existing. Every girl who has been told to dim her light so others could feel comfortable. Every person who has been judged not by their character, but by their appearance. In African culture, we have a saying, "A tree does not move unless there is wind." My pain was the wind that moved me toward my purpose. The shame I endured became the foundation of my strength. The rejection I faced became the fuel for my rise. Sister Beatrice taught me an unintentional lesson, that sometimes the people who hurt us the most become the catalysts for our greatest transformation. Today, Rain by Anita is more than a fashion brand. It's a declaration, a movement, a reminder that no one has the right to make you feel small. So, I leave you with this question. What if the very thing the world shames you for is actually the key to your destiny? What if your pain is not a punishment, but a preparation? Think about it. Because somewhere in Lagos, in Nigeria, in Africa, in the world, there's a girl who needs to hear that she is not a mistake. And maybe, just maybe, your story is the one that will set her free. Thank you for watching.